And welcome to another live stream from FastGen. This is in relation to our hackathon as well. And I have the honor of having John here. John has built over 100 companies since 29. He has built some very successful ones, some less successful ones. We are picking his brain on how he picks the projects to work on, what he's learned over the years, and also what differentiates the successful projects from the failed ones. But first of all, John, very good to have you here. How are you doing?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Mike. It's an honor to be here. I'm looking forward to share all my failures as well as successful projects.
Nice. So, as I mentioned, you've built lots of different things, right? So what got you initially started on going on the journey of building all these different products?
Oh, sorry, I think I didn't hear you because Siri suddenly decided to talk to me. Just try
Okay, no
again.
worries. I'll try again. So what got you started to initially to start out building all these different things? Was it a deliberate decision that you said, okay, now I'll churn out all these products and I'll see what works, or was it a different kind of story?
That was 2008 or actually 2007. So that was
Mm,
like 15 years ago.
yeah.
And I was studying computer science. And I felt like all this study was so boring. And I watched this movie. It was it was Pirates of Silicon Valley or something like that. It's about Steve Jobs and Bill
Mm,
Gates. So I felt like I'm just wasting my time doing these, little programs, assignments, etc. So I went and asked my professor, like, is there anything real I can do? And he said, yeah, there is a project that's being ordered from government, and our university is kind of taking that tender, and you can join that project. So that's where I started doing a real project. And after that, I figured out that it's actually a lot of fun to build something that's actually used compared to building something that's just an assignment. And the next step there was to figure out what to build on my own, because that job was kind of paid job, and I felt like I want to build something on my own. And I didn't find any good ideas back then, so I just went on asking people what they want to build, and then I was kind of joining this idea people with my tech skills. So the first 5 years, I came up with zero ideas on what to build. And the only thing I
mm,
was doing, I was finding people with ideas and building really, really fast for them, with
nice.
them. So I was kind of like
Okay.
co-founder.
Hmm. Okay, so basically you were bored in college and then your professor said, well, you can build actual things. And then you found other people over time that you could work on different projects with. And then apparently you just said back then you worked with other people, but at some point it transitioned into you building your own projects as well, right? So how did that go?
Well, I felt like I had more and more competence. I felt like I understand more and more because it was a founder or a co-founder I had was building just this project, and I was building my 10th project or 15th project, right? So with every new project, I felt like I have more experience in everything than my co-founders, just because I was building the tech, but I was seeing the rest. I was also part of the investor meetings. I was part of the marketing and everything. So I started learning quite a lot on all other things, such as marketing, HR, and fundraising. And after 5 years, I felt like I know enough and I can try my own things. It was like I still didn't have ideas. So to be honest, it was like the first 10 years, I didn't have any good ideas, not on my own, not with the others. It was more like I felt like I just have to do stuff constantly. And eventually, some good idea will come to my mind. And I just should never stop and just keep doing. And then eventually, I start my own stuff, one and then the other, and then the third. And I felt like I can do that. I can actually do all the other stuff except the coding. And that's where I realized that I'm kind of on the path of becoming independent maker that can do stuff on his own. And I kind of realize quite well what people want, but I have to find the intersection where people want something and I like that stuff too, because I felt like that's really important thing to have to go full into one project.
Yeah, and now you could say that you are a pretty successful maker, and like, is that the term you like to use, maker, or would you call yourself an entrepreneur or indie hacker?
Yeah,
what is your
I like
preferred
maker. I actually
maker?
like to be called maker because it is different. Like entrepreneurs might be not making stuff, they might be managing people, they might be managing the
Yeah,
company.
yeah.
In my
Okay.
case, I try to actually outsource everything about managing to other people, and I'm just trying to be the maker myself in all the products I do.
Nice. Let's talk about like your most successful product so far at first, and then we can dive a bit deeper into some of the details. I think the most successful one is, I assume, MarsX. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us a bit more about what it is, how it got started, and at least the metrics that you can share with us as well.
So I've been building a lot of software, and obviously my main pain was the process of building software, right? So the projects were kind of coming and going. There were like different stuff like e-commerce, apps, etc. So it was a lot of different stuff, but one thing was constant, is that it always took time to build projects. There were always bugs. There were always a lot of work on maintenance. It was difficult to replace people when developers were headhunted to other companies, and you're left with nobody. Then you have to find new ones. So these problems were the same. And in 2018 or 2017, I thought like there has to be an easier way to build software. Because like every time I built something, I was pretty much reinventing a lot of the things. And then I thought like maybe I should try something. And I went and explored, and I found a lot of no code and low code tools out there. And I tried them all, and it was very exciting at the beginning, but it was very disappointing later. And I think I have kind of walked through the same journey as many people who use them. It's like it gives you high leverage at the beginning, but eventually, when your product becomes complicated, you want to have more control over the code, and it's not possible. And then I thought like I have to build a system that lets you start with no code and transition into pro code after. And that's how I started MarsX. So it was many years ago, and it was just for myself. It was like my internal project. I only used it myself for first years, and then only my friends used it, and then friends of my friends, and then we ended up building like quite big startup out of it. And now we're like almost 2 million in ARR, and we have hundreds of projects running on this, and millions of users on those projects combined. So it's pretty good story. But then that's not the end of the story. So I guess I will come to the next projects, which I started building on top of Mars. So basically Mars, gave me this leverage, like a tool that lets me build stuff really fast. And I turned into the maker I am now, basically once I built Mars, because I could use Mars to build all the next projects. So I kind of built this wheel, and then I built all the cars on top of this.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And then you have so many different projects going on, right? And you say that you outsource a lot of the managing, but how do you manage your own time between all the different projects that you have? Because you have some ongoing projects, you have some new projects, you're thinking about new things constantly. How do you decide what to work on?
I use this framework called urgent important. So basically, I only work on urgent things. It means that I just look at all the things I can do, and I see like what I have to do today that if I do tomorrow, it's too late, right? So I don't have any planning. I don't have any to-do lists and calendars. Basically, I just work in a reactive way. But at the same time, I have this few hours a day where I do something that's completely off. Like, for example, just before this call, an hour before this call, I felt like there are a lot of boilerplates in the internet, like Next.js boilerplates. It's like a lot of them suddenly. And I felt like there has to be a good way to find them all, a director or something. And then I just found a good name on Google, and then I just searched for domain. I bought it. I built the landing page. I built directory. So, and now I'm launching this after this call, right? So,
Nice.
and I didn't plan this. So
Yeah.
I just came out with this a few hours ago. So every day I try to do something like that, spontaneous, where I just have no plans and I never expect myself to do that. And then that's like 20% of my time or 30% of my time. And 70% of my time is reactive. I have a lot of products and they just kind of scream at me like, do that, do this. I don't have to choose like the one that screams most. I can work on that.
Got it. And is screaming usually a customer complaining about a bug, or is screaming?
Yeah.
That's usually
so I found this really best way to never think about priorities ever again in your life. So just launch stuff unfinished. So when you launch stuff unfinished to the users and you get even one user, that user screams back to you saying like, hey, this is unfinished. Kind of, right? And then you know what to do because he doesn't say everything, like he doesn't list 100 things that you think are unfinished, right? Usually that user would list like 3 things that are kind of bugging him or her, and then you just work on those. So basically, I just launch stuff very early, earlier than normal people do, like way before you're embarrassed, even way before it works, to be honest. And then I just listen to users. I tell them that this is early, and you're gonna be the first user who is gonna kind of test this, and they're okay with that. And then they tell me just finish this part or fix this part, and I fix those parts. That's why I'm never short on this feedbacks, and usually I work on those that are most critical, and it's easy to sort them.
Got it. Okay, that's a very interesting approach. I don't think I've seen many people just do like start into the day and see what screams the most and focus on that, and then still have some time for like unplanned and spontaneous work. But I like the idea of just like letting these circumstances prioritize it for you, because if something is working, then you might not have to work on it. But if something is causing problems, then you have to. And if it's a very small bug, like maybe like the button is a couple pixels to the side, well, that's fine. But if something like fundamental breaks, then you might want to focus on it. So let's talk a little bit about, I think we talked about how can you build so many projects. You just gave a great example for that. You just spontaneously came up with an idea, and then you don't think a lot about it. You don't plan it through that much. You just start building it. And you probably have some kind of system in place for, okay, I need the URL, I need the landing page, and I need the like product. Do you have like a step-by-step process, or does it depend on the project that you're building?
Well, I have 3 types of projects. So I have the simple projects. It's usually a directory or something about information. So it's not a tool, it's information-based website that makes it easy to find, sort, and filter stuff. Which is very useful for the traffic. That's where I get half of my traffic for all the other projects. And then I have tools, the SaaS tools, and then I have platforms. And platforms are the things where you build other businesses on top, right? So I have these 3 types. And I don't start new platforms often. So basically I have just one. I actually have 3. So one I started 10 years ago. That's like for the movie industry. It's boring, but it's big and it's funding all my other stuff, but it's boring. And then I have this MarsX, which is platform where I build everything. And then I have Unicorn platform, which is a platform for simple stuff. And then I have a lot of SaaS tools. And with SaaS tools, I start them pretty often just based on my own problems. Like if there is something I'm not happy with, like for example, I was not happy with the way all these email tools work, or with the way all these SEO tools work, because they are great for a lot of the people, but not for me. And it turns out that if something is great for me, it's also great for a lot of the people. Not all, but there's a huge number of people who are also happy with things I'm happy with. That's why whenever I see something I'm not happy with, I just build that for myself. I have some things I built for myself and kept for myself for years. And then because I just forgot to launch it, right? So and there it's the process is very simple. So I just don't think about this as a project. I think about my own utility. I build it for myself. There's no domain, there's no design or anything. It's just to solve my own problem. And then when I build a directory or information website, that process I run from other end. So I just think about the actual consumer of this first. So I start with Google research. I search for the traffic on the keywords. I had this recent case where I did that and it just worked so great. So I searched for the traffic on GPT stuff, and I found that all GPTs has really high traffic, like all GPTs.
Yeah.
And then I just bought a domain called all GPTs because it was free. It was not kind of popular back yet. It was just before OpenAI launch, but people talk about that launch. So, and then I bought the domain. I didn't know what to do with the domain first. I thought there was some GPTs on it. And then after the launch, I realized what I can put there, actual GPTs. So I put them in, and then, it just worked out, and it turned out to be the best GPT directory in the world, by what people say in the internet now. So I kind of, reverse engineering. So I go for the traffic. I find the untapped potential in the traffic. There's a lot of it. It's like there are like a lot of keywords with high traffic and no product. So the traffic goes to blogs, and I just build that product. And usually that's not the tool. Usually it's information website, because you have to be fast. If I find good keyword today and I spend 3 months or months building a product, it will be too late. That keyword won't stay there for long. So you have like few days or a week. That's why it has to be this kind of directory. So that's my process. So it depends on the type of the project. And for the easy ones, I go from the keywords to the landing page, from the landing page to the content, and that's it. And then I go to the Twitter and I kind of make tweet about this, and then usually it either explodes or nobody cares. If nobody cares, I just kind of put it in a shelf.
Yeah. And is that your actual launch process? It's just tweeting about it and then see if people buy it, or do you do more than that?
No, that's it. So the only thing I do to validate ideas is to see Google traffic and see a reaction on Twitter. And by Twitter, I mean like social media. Like today, Twitter is big. So basically, it's so big for me that I don't have to use anything else. But 1 year ago, Twitter wasn't that good as today. So, and I would use Facebook, I would use Instagram, LinkedIn, and I would go to a conference to pitch this. So it was way more complicated, actually. Now it's just one tweet. After 30 minutes, I can tell whether the idea is great or not by seeing the engagement on the tweet I make.
And is it mostly your own community, or is it people from beyond the community that see your tweets and engage with it?
It's both. So I have built this network of people who kind of follow my journey, and they're more junior than me, and they kind of follow what I do and try to kind of learn stuff, I guess. And but the way Twitter works now is that it shows my tweets to a lot of the people, not just from my network. So I have more views than I have followers. In fact, my best projects had, like over 100,000 views when I had like a few thousand followers. So Twitter is a really good place to test idea even before you build it. Like, so most ideas like Dev Hunt, Dev Hunt, right?
Yes.
And the way it was born is that I launched on Product Hunt, and it was, the other products, I won't, say the names, but some products bought some bots, and I didn't feel good about that. And I felt like Product Hunt doesn't disclose the data, it's closed source, and we need open source version. So I just asked Twitter, like, is that a good idea or not? And that tweet exploded. And back then I had almost no followers. So it was just the organic explosion. And then we built Dev Hunt. We just found people who wanted to build with us, open source. And now Dev Hunt is really cool. Like today is really, it's doubling every month on the traffic. And I don't think it will stop, right? So yeah, it's that's how I validate stuff. And what I would say, like some might say, you have the network, but I would say I could validate stuff when I had 100 followers too. It's just, now I get 100K views, and back then I would get 100 views and, 7 comments, now 70 comments. But you still see, if the idea is bad, nobody reacts. Like if nobody reacts out of your 100 friends, your idea is actually bad. That's what I think.
Got it. And I assume that means that your friends also have to be the potential target audience then, right? Because it could be that a different target audience might like your product, but what you are doing is basically launching products that are all roughly for the same audience, more or less, right? It's always people who are interested in making stuff and building stuff. Yeah. And if you have that, then you can like launch lots of products, and then they will tell you whether it's a good idea or not.
Yeah, you're right. So I kind of entered this niche of dev tools and SaaS tools for founders. So basically my audience is the founders, and that's why it's so easy for me to guess what they're gonna like, because I'm the founder myself. And I'm the kind of founder who is very lazy. So I'm, sometimes when you build a lot of stuff, you get very experienced, you become different than the rest because of the experience, right? But in my case, I'm like, it's like some people say like Apple is the biggest startup. In my case, I'm still working as I'm beginner, or I'm this like few years in the game, and that's why I tend to behave similar to the people who are 1-2 years experience in being a maker, and that's why it fits so well. But as I mentioned, I have other stuff in total different areas, like cinema and movies, right? But I have
if you tweet
other
about
network.
If you tweet about the that's my point, right? You don't tweet about the movie stuff, right?
I do it in other channels. So I have other channels where I have the other audience.
Yes. That makes sense. So you try to separate audiences, movie audience
completely
versus founder and SaaS audience. And I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Do you usually have a gut feeling of what will be successful or not, or is it completely random? Because if you knew more or less what would be successful, you wouldn't have to tweet about it, right? So basically the crowd intelligence tells you a little more than just your gut feeling, I think. Like, or do you usually know, oh, this is more likely to be successful than you're right? Or is it just, I push this tweet and I launch it and I'll see what will actually work and what won't?
It's all of it, what you just mentioned. So and obviously over time my intuition gets stronger and stronger, right? Like I have very strong intuition for SaaS tools for business makers. So basically today there is near 100% ratio on what I think people are going to say and what people say when I'm launching certain type of tools. It's like the SaaS tool for business makers, anything. Like it can be for emails, for marketing, for uptime, for management, whatever. But if it's the same audience, it's really good fit, and I can predict. But some time back, I couldn't. So I would make my internal bets on one project and not on the other. And then whenever I come to this time where I want to pitch this into the audience, I would see the opposite, for example. So I started having wrong intuition, which was often the opposite. So whatever I thought will work out well was not working out well, and the other way around. But now it is pretty accurate. So the reason I tweet about stuff now is more of a marketing. So basically, I'm coming from movie industry, as I mentioned earlier, and it is boring stuff, but I learned one thing really well there. You know how movies are promoted, right? So it's a lot of anticipation. It's a lot of teasing, trailers, anticipation, and then on the launch day, they burn 80% of all marketing money just in 2 weeks. With a blast, right? That's what I do as well. So pretty much my marketing strategy is 100% the same as the movie Hollywood strategy.
Interesting. Okay. So you developed a better gut feeling over time, and then you like very heavily promote around launch because that's the crucial time period for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Okay, like we only have a couple minutes left, so let's see if we have any questions from the audience. So if you're watching on Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever, like we stream this on lots of different platforms at the same time. Like you can. Oh, I already have the first question. Do you have a directory of all of your projects somewhere? Is one of the questions. Like, how do you
Hmm.
know what kind of projects you even have if you build so many?
I just thought about this an hour before this call, and I was sitting in GoDaddy and looking at all
Mm,
the domains because I
yeah.
realized that that's the only way to find all my projects. And funny enough, I found projects that I forgot I have, and they're good projects with really good domains, and and I'm gonna tweet about them in a few days. So I don't have any directory, but now I realize how to find all of them on GoDaddy. So but if the question was that if people want to see all my projects, that's a good point. I guess I have to make this link in bio, or these pages with a list. So that's probably a good idea. I will for myself and for the people.
Yeah, I think that's a thing that helps both sides, I guess. Um, then another question here is initially when you got started being a maker, like did you get paid for it by like the co-founders that you had? So like how did you bridge the gap, I think is the question between
Yeah.
being
No,
full-time
I
employed versus then moving over.
so I usually get paid by equity. So back then when I started, it was like this typical startup world where companies had um, equity and they had valuation and etc. So I would usually get paid from 5% to 15% of the company for being a technical co-founder. And the idea was that if everything goes well and we raise money from investors, then I will get paid real money, and that would happen. Sooner I started getting real money from the project. So I was like involved into 10 plus projects, and some were paying me, some were not paying me yet.
Got it. So it was a mix of things basically.
But I started working for equity, and I think
Yes.
that's what, if anyone wants to start that way, work for equity,
Yeah.
because then people trust you. People trust that you do it because you're interested in the project, not just
The
in the
incentives
money.
are aligned, right? Which
Yeah.
is always helpful, especially if you start out. Um, then the second thing is something that I also find interesting. Are there any spaces where makers like you hang out other than Twitter? Or like I think the question is like, is there like a community or anything like that?
Yeah. A lot. And I was hanging out everywhere before Twitter. And once I moved to Twitter, I felt like if I had this from the beginning, I would I would be so much happier.
Mm,
So I would recommend people to actually bet on Twitter.
okay, Twitter is the place to be, apparently. Are there any
Because it's
specific like hashtags, or should you just like if you're new into the maker scene, should you just follow some people like you and then see who comments and then engage with them, or what is
yeah,
your
yeah.
what is it
Twitter
that you would
has
recommend?
really good algorithm. So basically, if you only talk about the maker stuff, if you only
Mm-hmm.
put comments on the maker posts,
Mm-hmm.
then your feed will be great, and you will kind of put more comments and more replies, and then you will start putting more posts, and people might see that because you had conversation, the replies. So the key for Twitter is do just one topic, like only one topic. Never talk about crypto, never talk about politics, nothing. Just make your stuff, and then it will be great.
Got it. Yeah, that's sometimes very difficult to do if you
It
see
is,
like
it
this
is.
like very engaging other. Maybe you need a second Twitter profile just for your
uh
for your other
Now
stuff.
you just have to use muted words. So I have 200 muted words,
Yeah,
so I don't see anything.
I have a couple of muted words as well because I was too distracted by politics Twitter and just seeing what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, John, I think we're at time. That was very insightful. So basically for everyone who has been watching and wants to follow along, I think your Twitter handle is John Rush X.
Yes.
So if you want to follow along, this is the place to do that and see what's launching next. I'm very excited. I'm excited about the directory because then I can just scroll through all the projects. And yeah, excited to follow along the journey. Thanks for all your insights. Is there anything that you want to give a shout out other than your Twitter?
Oh, it's pretty much the only place where I share stuff now. I do 2 posts a day, and I try to only talk about stuff that I've done myself, and you can kind of do it for yourself too, right? Because not everything can be done by everyone. So it is a good place to follow me.
Okay, great. Then we'll do exactly that. Thank you for the insights and have a good rest of your week. And as always, happy building.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.